Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to PHP tutorials. Today is our lecture number 13 and in today's lecture I'm going to demonstrate how can you pass default values to your functions, basically user defined functions, okay? And we'll also see what is recursion and what's the concept of recursion is in this particular lecture. So let's start. Basically when we are going to apply a multi-purpose, or when you are going to create a multi-purpose function that can use for single parameter and that can also use for multiple parameters on the same time, then we can use the default values as a parameters inside the functions. Let me create a function, let's say function and then add, and let's say I wanted to pass some values when I call this function, let's say x, and I wanted to call a value that is y, but I'm giving the default value that is 1. So what is this? This means that the $y is optional. If you do not pass $y parameter, it will run. In normal cases, we have to satisfy all the parameters. If we have specified 2 parameters, then we have to pass 2 parameters when we call the function. But here, when you have specified the value by default, then you don't need to pass this y by default. If you wish to pass y with some other value, you can, but the default value of y will become 1, and if you do not pass y parameter, then it will also run. Okay, I hope it is clear to everyone. So let me write here return $x plus $y. Okay, so in normal cases, when you call this function like this, echo add, and if you pass here 4, then this function will return what? This function will return the result, that is 5, because the default value of y is 1. I hope it is clear to everyone. And now if you can call this function like this, echo add and then 4 comma 4, then it will accept y and it will now use this 4 instead of 1. That is the default value. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay, so let's start and see what's the results we have. What are the results we have? Save it and see on the browser. Look, why this is coming as 58? Why this is coming as 58? This is not 58 because you haven't applied the BR tag. That's why this is appearing as 5 and 8. Okay, so it's your observance. How can you do? So right here echo and then BR and then that's it. And then you can write here the sum of this and this is this and that. Okay, so it's up to you how you customize. So Chrome and now see. So look, this one function is behaving different with different input and behaving different in different input. So you don't have to write actually the number of parameters again and again, or the number of coding functions or overloading versions again and again. Simple, in one function you have different parameters, and this is known as the optional parameters. You pass it, then it's good. If you do not pass it, then it will use the default value. Now if you wish to create another parameter, let's say this, then it is okay, no problem. So it's your choice how many number of optional parameters you can create. There is one rule that all the mandatory parameters should come before all the optional parameters. That means you have to specify all the mandatory parameters first in your function, and then you have to specify all the optional parameters inside your function. I hope it is clear to everyone. What I am saying, practical demonstration is, you cannot write something like this after this. I hope it is clear to everyone. All the mandatory parameters should be before the optional parameters. I hope it is clear to everyone. Now that's a rule. This rule is also available in C# also. Same is the case. You can create functions in C#. The optional parameters can be specified like this, and there also you cannot specify the mandatory parameter after the optional parameters. I hope it is clear to everyone. Now let's talk about the next part, that is recursion. So what is recursion? Basically recursion is a concept in which the function calls itself. Recursion is the process in which the function calls itself, and the function calls itself until and unless the condition got false. How? Let's talk about the Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series. What this series is basically, it took 2 numbers, okay, and then it will sum the first and second number and then generate the third number, and then it will sum the second and the third number, and it will generate the sum of those two numbers, and then it will sum up the second and the second last number, that is 2 and 3, it will give you 5, and then 3 and 5 it will give you 8, and then 5 and 8 it will give you 13. So I hope it is clear to everyone. So this is what Fibonacci series is. Okay, so this is the pattern that is creating. So if you wanted to create something like this, or let's say if you are using graphically, let's say in terms of graphics, if we talk about, let's say you have a panel, and you have a panel within a panel, and then you have a panel within a panel within a panel. So what will happen? If you wanted to clear the panel first, the controls of the panel first, reset the controls, then you have to go inside the internal panel also, and you have to reiterate that panel, and then inside that panel you have another panel, so you have to go inside that panel. So that's repetition. The calling of the function within itself is known as recursion. Okay, so let's create a function here. Function, sorry, that's not Fibonacci, that's yes, that's Fibonacci series. And one more example you can do with recursion, that is factorial. Okay, so what is factorial? Factorial means this: if somebody wants to find the factorial of 5, then that means that he wants to multiply 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, and then the result is any number. I hope it is clear to everyone. So look, every time you are going back, and the process is what? Multiplication. I hope you are getting me what I am trying to say. So let us calculate the factorial first. Factorial, and then here you have to pass the number, let's say num. So whatever the number I will pass, it will calculate the factorial of that. I hope it is clear to everyone. Then after that you check. Look, if I enter here 1, then the factorial of 1 will be only 1, because 1 into 1 is 1. So I have to check that if $num is equals to 1, then simply what you have to do, you have to return 1. Right, so what you can do, you can come here inside this and write here return, and spelling is this, return, and then 1, simple. If the value is 1, then return this, else what you have to do, you have to perform the multiplication of the current number from the previous number. So how can you do that? So return, the current number is in num, okay, the current number is in num, multiply by, can you write here fact of $num minus 1. So what will happen? This is known as recursion. You are calling your function within itself. What this function is asking you to enter a number. Okay, so when you come inside this point, what will happen? The number is 5, let's say, and 5 minus 1 is 4. So what will be happened? 5 into 4. Okay, and then the function calls itself again, and then 4 minus 1 is 3, then 5 into 4 into 3, and then so on, the function calls itself. It's like a chain or a tree. I hope it is clear to everyone. Alright, so let me show you on Notepad. I have already written this step by step internal procedure. So look, when the first time when the loop will execute, you are entering 5, let's say, and 5 into fact of 5 minus 1, that is 4, so the result will be 20, and then the loop will call itself again, or the function will call itself again with the new value, that is this one, and then the factorial of this will be calculated, and then the factorial of this, and then the factorial of this, and in the end you reach to 1, and then this condition will be true. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay, so that's all. You can specify, you can now run this and call this function here, echo fact of 5. That's it. So let's see what's the result. Okay, 120. So you can verify it. 5 into 4 is 20, 20 into 3 is 60, 60 into 2 is 120, and 120 into 1 is 120. So the result is 120. I hope it is clear to everyone at this particular point. So what is happening, guys? It's basically, it's like a loop. Recursion will act like a loop, and it is required based on the requirements, based on the situation. You can apply loop or you can apply recursion, but let me tell you one thing, recursion is slower than loops. recursion is slower in nature than loops, because the function is calling itself, so it increases the overhead in the processor. I hope it is clear to everyone. So loops are more beneficial, and recursion is also beneficial, but when it requires. So that's all for today. Hope you have understood how can you pass the default values to the functions and how can you perform the recursion. There are other practical examples of recursion, you can find it online also. So keep trying, and hope you have understood everything. Thank you so much. Take care. Allah Hafiz.